friend of mine, recently, when referring to my very dull Instagram account, said of the games I post, they all look very similar. Now, my terrible photography aside, you could be forgiven for thinking that. They really are of a piece. When laid out, they do look very similar. A board, some components, sometimes wood, sometimes plastic, and a few cards. When you're not familiar with the tropes and genres of games, they can all blur into these fairly flat things that weirdos get obsessed with. If I'd have thought about these things at all before I was sucked into this hobby, I'm fairly sure that this is what I would have thought. When the scales fell from my eyes, though, I was blown away by the magic that could be unleashed from a board, a few components and a handful of cards. The wonder that was created by linking intellectual concepts and representing them in wood and plastic. The world of games is so broad too that you can travel through it, experiencing different landscapes and microclimates, landing in one part of the world and in the same night being swept away to a totally different land with totally different customs. While I found my home in mid-weight Euros, I've travelled through many different regions to get there. In this video, I want to talk about the games that made me the gamer I am today. These tentpole titles that will never be scrubbed from my memory. Let me know what those games are for you and why they're important to you. So join me as we travel through my grubby history as we discover the games that made me. This one hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was in my mid-30s, trying to find amusements that would keep me out of the pub. I watched some Dice Tower videos and thought I would chance my arm on Pandemic. Bloody hell! Firstly, I had no idea there was such a thing as co-op games and was fascinated by the idea of us all struggling against the challenges the game would set us. Then I read the rules, and against all sense and reason I understood them. Still, I had no idea what their effect would be. When we started playing and the engine sputtered into life, I was amazed. It was engrossing trying to work our way through the game, planning our course of action. Also, it was vital to that first experience that none of us were gamers. None of us thought we possessed superior knowledge to the others, and so the game was a truly collaborative experience. What really blew me away, though, was the way the tension was built up through the game. I still think putting the infected cities back on the top of the deck might be the best mechanism in gaming. After that first night of playing Pandemic, I felt lightning in my veins. I was so struck by what Matt Leacock had done with those few bits of paper and wood, and games had pierced me, and they've been very difficult to budge. That first night around the table is always there, and it's fair to say that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Pandemic. I'll admit it, I've got a big mouth. Also, I love the sound of my own voice. I mean, you've heard it, it's gorgeous. I love having a laugh, and as an actor, I adore a bit of dissembling. That means that Avalon was always going to be perfect for me. This is a revolutionary design, the game on which so many subsequent social deduction games are based. And it's so simple too. There are baddies and goodies. There are fewer baddies, but they know who each other are, and both teams are trying to win. Simple. Then, human nature does the rest. The first time I played this, we ended up playing it all night. Game after game, trying to divine people's intentions. There's so much talk done about games bringing people together, and Avalon is the quintessence of this. You play the game, but that's not where the experience stops. Then there's the after-game analysis, the incredulity that someone could be just so dishonest. I played this with the cast of my upcoming play the other day. Not one hobby game played between them, and after 5 minutes they were all pleading their innocence and throwing accusations around like they've been playing it all their lives. I made friends through my plays of Avalon. I spent so many valuable hours playing this game. It is a towering title in the story of my gaming, and one I really wish I'd designed. Libertalia was one of those aha moments. One of those early games that made me realise how game mechanisms could be combined to tell brilliant stories and stimulate the mind. This game is just so clever, and the way the actions combine truly bring life to the deeply amoral world of classic era pirates. I remember my first play of this, and halfway through the first round making a connection and thinking, yes, if I do this and then this and the other players will do this and I'll get points. It was the first time I'd really felt like a gamer, not just a blowhard who was good at social deduction games because of their oversized lungs. I was a real gamer that made decisions. This is why Libertalia is so important to me. Also, it doesn't hurt that it's one of the best games out there. The mechanical inventiveness and the unique powers on the cards and the way they interlock is wonderful. Also, it genuinely feels grimy and piratical. Or it did until its reprint. What the reprint fails to understand with its children's book art and its default tame gameplay is that we can have morally questionable themes explored in this hobby of ours. Gaming doesn't always have to be a WI meeting. There is a mischief and a transgression in the original Libertalia that is wholly absent from the chlorine-scrubbed puritanism of the new one. I don't want a safe game with nice animals. I want a glint in the eye and a roguish charm. That's why I can only really get behind the original version of this game. I've played this game a lot. It became my Friday night for about a year to get some beers in and try and dismantle the machinations of the Overlord as he mercilessly carved us poor heroes to pieces. Sometimes we'd land a few blows, and sometimes we'd kill a big monster, but the story this game would tell us every week was always exhilarating and always fun. This game is on this list as a lament, a symbol of loss. Lives change, people move away, friendships fade. This is why as we get older we become more melancholy, because we recognise the transience of life. I can't get a group together to play a campaign like this anymore. Everyone's too busy, too unreliable, or just not into it enough. That makes me sad. I would love to power through a campaign of this one again. The ritual was so affirming. I'd set up the game half an hour before everyone arrived, then nip over the shop and buy a few beers. When people arrived, we'd aimlessly talk about nothing, then wend our way over to the table and dive into the world of Descent, casting spells and fighting monsters and laughing at terrible dice rolls. Then after we'd finished, we'd have another beer and chat before everyone went home and I flopped into bed. I had a truly wonderful time playing this campaign of Descent, and I miss it. Also, I have to mention that this game is bloody good. This is the glory days of FFG, when almost everything they published was top drawer. I gleefully bought expansions and loved playing those too. A deep, abiding love for games was fostered on those Friday nights, back when I still felt young. Great times. The first time I played this one I was destroyed. I mean, staring into the mirror, questioning every decision I've ever made destroyed. Trajan was the first heavy Euro I bought and I was super eager to try it. Then I played it with a bunch of computer programmers, rancid system builders all. The mechanical interactions clicked for them in an instant, and like greyhounds around a track, they eagerly leapt ahead while my wheezing St. Bernard just watched them fade into the distance. I put Trajan back on the shelf and didn't play it for years while it sat there, silently mocking me. Things changed though, and a few years and many games later I pulled it down again and played it. It is established at this point that Trajan is a wonderful game, but that's not the point. The point is that this time I got it. Heuristics learned through hour upon hour of playing games had transformed my next play of Trajan into average. Not good, that will never happen, but I wasn't destroyed this time. I'd grown as a gamer. You like to get better at stuff, even if it's only a hobby, and here was definitive proof. This marked my transition into playing heavier games and not being intimidated by them, even though I do think that some games are just complication for the sake of it. I love Trajan now and play it all the time, but the memory of that first play will never leave me. So let me know below, what are the games that made you? Also, if you want, you could like this video and sub for more videos like this. Also, you can buy oodles of 5G4D merch at sirmeeple.com, and if you really like what I'm doing, you can back the show at patreon.com/5G4D, like these people. These videos couldn't be made without that support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.